answers right away, that's fine, but you need to know how to get the answers, right? Spoke about risk and scope management. So every project has a risk. Like, every project. Think about it. Like I said, it's not going to be a smooth ride. There are going to be ups and downs. There are going to be unforeseeable. So, you need to be able to manage those risks. You need to be able to manage your scope. You are planning your wedding. Again, I'll go back to that. You're planning your wedding. You wanted 100 guests, and now your mother-in-law is like, no, I have 20 more family members that should join, and now you are looking at 120. That's scope creeping. So how do you manage that? Because then once you allow that 20 more people, it means your budget is going up, probably going to impact your timeline as well. So how do you as a project manager ensure that you don't creep your scope? Stakeholder communications, we spoke about that already. That's very important. Communication is very important in any profession you can think of. It's even more important in project management. So you should know how to talk to people. You should know how to listen, which is very important. Listen, talk to people, be able to influence them. Also, decision making. In a lot of cases, you would have to make decisions on the fly. So you need to have those skills as well. Adaptability. Things are going to change, situations may change, so you should be able to adapt, you should be able to pivot, and you should still be able to drive the project to success, right? You don't just give up saying, oh, yeah, we were planning to have the wedding, and 1 week to the wedding, the DJ said they can't make it, so we won't have the wedding anymore, right? Same applies to if you were in the technology industry, you are planning, let's say, and the solution implementation, and one of your key guys exits the company, right? They left the company, they were not very knowledgeable. Doesn't mean the project has to stop. You still have to adapt. You have to, solve that problem, and you need to move on with the project. And the last part is emotional intelligence. In projects, you work with people. Dealing with people is very tough. As a project manager, I can tell you that I've worked with a lot of people, and it's one of the most difficult part of the jobs is dealing with people and getting people to do the work that they know they have to do. So you need to be able to, as part of your skills, you need to have an emotional intelligence. You need to know how to talk to people. You need to know how to handle situations. If there are conflicts in the team, you should know how to handle those. They are going to come up, so you should know all these. Again, these are the core skills, right? Not limited to just these. There are a lot more skills that encompasses all the skills required to become a project manager. Tools and methodologies. In managing project, we spoke about managing people, we spoke about the organization part, the planning part, and whatnot. But in order to bring visibility into what people are doing and where you are going, and to sort of visualize your timeline and where you are at and all that, you need tools. In the world of IT, we have tools like Jira, Asana, Trello, Azure DevOps, countless. Depending on the industry, there may be other tools that could be used. As a project manager, it's very important be to get familiar, or basically to get familiar with some of these tools, right? So again, if you are looking at the IT area of project management, then these are some of the tools that you need. If you are looking at construction project management, they probably have their own tools. If you're looking at health project management, they probably have their own tools. Like for IT, these are some of the tools. And tools are always learnable. Like you can always learn how to use some of these tools. Myself, I've used Jira and Azure DevOps. I've used Azure DevOps, more extensively. I didn't just wake up. The first time I came across this, like when I went to university, I didn't go to school to learn about Azure DevOps, right? Like I had to learn that at some point when I started my career. So if you don't know it now, you know, that shouldn't scare you. These are tools that you can learn. Processes. So, as a project manager, you do a lot of documentations, you do a lot of reporting. Documentation meaning, even before the project start, we made mention of a plan. So you need a plan, right? You need a project management plan. You need a project charter. Your charter contains what's in scope, what your objective is, what your budget is, what your timeline is, who are your stakeholders. You need that. You need your financial sheet. You have your finances. Let's say you have a ballpark amount of $50,000 or 50,000 Ghana cedis to spend. You need a financial sheet to be able to break down, okay, how much is my labor cost, right? Labor cost meaning all my team members, how much are they charging to the project, right? If I'm working with vendors, how much are they charging? If I'm going to buy any equipment, how much are the equipment, and how soon, do I need to get those equipment? Do I need to deal with procurement? So you do a lot of documentation and reporting um, to your product sponsor, reporting to your stakeholders, reporting to your steering committee. And frameworks. There are quite a number of frameworks within project management, again, applicable to the kind of projects you are managing. Um, in a typical software world, we would use Agile. Agile is an iterative approach where we are trying to deliver value as soon as possible. So, we go through a 2 week sprint, depending on the team, 2 weeks is the standard. We go through a 2 week sprint and we make sure at the end of every 2 weeks we are delivering some value. And we have everyone. It's normally with a cross-functional team, so we have everyone we need within the same team to get things done, versus the waterfall approach. So the waterfall is more linear, right? We finish step A before we can move to step B. We cannot jump to step B when we haven't done step A. So that's the typical waterfall approach. This would be applicable to your typical construction project, right? Like, you need to finish your foundation before you do your roofing. No brainer, right? Typical waterfall approach. Some infrastructure projects within IT would also be considered waterfall. Versus hybrid. Hybrid is when you are combining agile and waterfall at the same time. I've managed projects where, in the beginning we started as waterfall and then we transitioned to agile, or we started as agile and we transitioned into waterfall. So that's the hybrid approach. And then the lean. Lean is typically applicable to manufacturing and production industries. I managed a project with the railway industry. Railway is more of that's not IT. Such projects are, you go in, they have a lot of waste. Waste meaning they have a lot of processes that doesn't make sense or time consuming or very cumbersome. So you go in, you apply the lean framework, you sort of process map what the process is, and then you take out what the wastes are, you automate some of the processes if possible, and then deliver your project. Okay. Any questions before I move on to the next slide? Okay, I'll keep going. So career skills most people miss. So when aspiring to become a project manager, some of the things that you should really pay attention to, especially when you are now transitioning. So let's say you are transitioning from, I don't know, whichever area of career you currently are transitioning into project management. The first part that you shouldn't miss is your resume storytelling, right? Your resume represents you. In Ghana, we call it CV, right? It represents you. That's the first touch point a recruiter or a hiring manager would see before even giving you a call. So in your resume, even though currently you don't have that title as a project manager, maybe in your current role there are some, your current day-to-day tasks can be translated into some of the things that we spoke about what project managers do, right? So maybe as part of your role, you plan, you coordinate people, you interact a lot with stakeholders or with vendors. So you need to really highlight those key points in your resume. Your resume needs to tell those stories that even though I was a finance analyst within the financial domain, I was working with stakeholders, I did ABCDE, I managed this risk. This is how I did it. So all these things are, transferable skills that can be applied to project management. Interview confidence. So assuming you went in, you told a good story on your resume. Of course, you don't need to lie. you told a news a good story on your resume, and it's time for you to go through the interview process. You need to have that interview confidence. You need to be able to speak to the things you've done, and you need to be able to do it so well that they can say that, well, even though this person wasn't a project manager, even if we start him off as a project coordinator, he would be able to do it, right? Like he's exhibited some characteristics or traits that we want to see in a project manager. Um, Next piece is translating the experience, which is quite similar to your resume storytelling, right? So the experience you've had in the past. Let's say you managed a wedding, or you managed a birthday party, or you managed a friend's event, or anything you can think about that was within budget, scope, timeline that could be considered as a project. You should be able to translate those experiences. And the next piece is professional positioning. Thankfully, in this era, we have LinkedIn, great platform for professionals. So you can go there, build yourself a nice profile. As you do that, you also get to learn more about project management. You connect with people in the project management industry, follow their posts, see what they post, learn, follow hiring managers, follow project management recruiters, sort of learn, position yourself well. When you get to that point where you feel like you are confident enough, you start reaching out to hiring managers, right? Like I do that a lot. And that's more often than not helps me with my next career. Reach out, be like, hey, I see you're recruiting for project coordinator or project manager. I have the skills. I've done this in the past. I'm passionate about being a project manager. I think I'll be very valuable to your organization. Let's have a coffee chat, right? Let's have a 15 minute chat. Let me tell you more about what I have done. And be passionate when you're talking. Be very passionate about what you've done. Be able to express yourself well that they can have confidence in hiring you, because no one wants to hire someone who will come in and do a bad job, right? So these are the skills that most people miss. So keep this in mind. Write this down somewhere if possible. Now, we spoke about experience, right? And here is the catch 22. The paradox in this industry is that you need the experience to get hired. Even entry level roles are like, yeah, you need 3 years worth of experience. Like, okay, I just came out of school, I have no experience. So, I'm just transitioning from this career path into project management. I don't have this experience. So how do I get hired? Right. So they're like, yeah, you need the experience to get hired, but you need a job to get the experience. If you don't have the job, how do you get the experience? And the solution here is as simple as you need to create proof of project management thinking. Right. You need to be able to prove that I can do this. I've done projects in the past, even though I didn't have that project management title. I was able to organize people, I was able to manage, plan, and get this idea into an outcome. Okay. And certifications, we've heard a lot about certifications. I think when I graduated from school, like very long time ago, those times you used to hear people saying, yeah, once you get certified, that is it. You get a job. Right? But unfortunately, it doesn't work in this era. Your certification alone will not cut it. And even some of these certifications, EAPM is an entry level project management role. So I tend to advise people to take that once they get their foot in the door, right? Like, once you get your foot in the door, you can get EAPM. PMP, you definitely need some experience. You need at least 3 5 years of project management experience before you even think of getting the PMP. Reason being that the PMP itself, it's the golden standard for project management. As part of the requirements, you need to have been working for 3 to 5 years, depending on your education. And most of the things that you would come across in the exam are things that are practical. So, assuming you just got out of school, you know nothing about project management, you don't have any foundation, and you go take the PMP, 99 out of 100, you will fail. Okay, because you don't really even understand what project management is. So it's very important to build your experience. And again, the experience building can be outside of that professional title, right? We spoke about experience building already, but just make sure that you've built a certain number of years of experience, or even if it's not several years, but you've worked on some projects, personal projects. You really understand. You start off by understanding the foundation. Take some entry level project management courses or trainings, and we'll talk about those very soon. Just to really understand what project management is, what is a project management life cycle, what is agile, what is hybrid, what is that, right? So that way it prepares you. Once you go through the experience, you know the foundation. Then when you are going in to take some of these certifications, you would be prepared. Myself, I only took my PMP last year, and I was able to prepare for and take the exam within 3 weeks. That's quite tough, but I was able to do it because I've gathered a lot of experience prior, right? So it was easier for me. So that's about it. And for those of you who are looking at getting certified in the future, we can always talk. I can always share some of the strategies I used to ace my PMP. Scrum certifications, they may be relevant for your journey, right? Scrum Master, Agile Scrum Master, Agile Product Owner, like those can be very useful in your journey. So the key takeaway here is that certifications support the skills, they don't replace them, right? So if you take the certification, it doesn't mean that you become a project manager. It doesn't mean that you know everything about project management. Okay. So the realistic project management roadmap here is to learn the fundamentals. You need to understand what project management is. You need to understand all the areas, the core areas, all these skills I told you about. You need to learn and really understand. You need to identify your skills, like the skill gaps, right? You are currently in row A. You want to get to row B. What's the gap? What's that gap there? Like, which skills are you missing? You need to be able to identify the skills, and you need to be able to learn those skills. You need to build applied experience. So project management is hands-on. It's not just textbook based, right? So you learn and you apply whatever you learn to a project. It could be personal, and you have to position yourself. We spoke about that already. LinkedIn is a great platform. Write more, follow people, interact with their posts. Put yourself out there. In this era, 2025, 2026, and beyond, visibility is your currency. Like, you cannot afford to just be in the corner expecting someone to come fish you and give you a position. No, it doesn't work anymore. You need to be out there. You need to be visible. You need to be loud. You need to let people see you. You need to show people what you are capable of, basically, and prepare for interviews. Right? Prepare for interviews. Learn from people's experience and go into your interview very confident. I'll talk a little bit about Agile Linux and why we exist. And we built this platform mainly because we wanted to help people like you, who are confused on your career path, which area to go, how to, let's say, pivot into project management or tech in general. So basically, what our platform does is that you go through a skill assessment. It asks you what are some of the current skills that you have, and it asks you what your goal is. So in your case, I would assume you want to become a project manager. You're currently, let's say, a pharmacist, or you're a tech lead or a team lead. So what are the skills that you currently have? You provide those skills. Our platform does an analysis and tells you, well, and even before it does the analysis, if you choose PM as the career path, it gives you an assessment, like a 10 questions assessment, like a 10 question assessment, and sort of try to get answers from you depending on your score. So it takes your score, it takes the current skills you have, and it does an analysis and says that, okay, based on your current role, your current skills, and where you are trying to go, these are the skills you are missing. And the platform creates lessons around the skills that you're missing, so at least you can get the foundation, right? Like foundational skills around the skills you are missing to help you bridge the gap. So gap identification and bridging the gap, and then guided learning. So the learning is a micro lesson approach. It's a micro lesson approach. So unlike going on YouTube, and I know we all get overwhelmed by some of these YouTube videos and Udemy, Coursera, and whatnot. several hours of videos, and sometimes you get overwhelmed, you get confused. Our platform provides a guided learning approach, and also we deliver the lessons through micro lesson approach. Micro lesson meaning you have 10-15 minutes of your time in a day. People don't really have time lately. You can just go in, take some lessons on project management, intro to project management. There are flashcards to help you remember some of the things. You go through a 5 question quiz assessment, then move on to the next. So in doing that, you bridge the gap that you're missing to get you to become a project manager. In career readiness, our platform provides that. So once you get the foundation, the next piece is trying to get a job, right? Within the same platform, if let's say you put project management as your career goal, you're able to search for career opportunities. For now, unfortunately, it is only limited to North America, so the US and Canada, but eventually we'll open it up to other countries. So you get to see career opportunities in these regions specific to project management, right? And then once you find a job that you're interested in, you need to work on your resume. Within the same platform, you can revamp your resume, right? You provide the job description, you provide your current resume, and then it assesses and tells you, well, this is what you are missing for this specific role. You may have heard that you need to make sure you are tailoring your resume for each position you apply to. You don't just spray and pray, right? Spray and pray. It's using the same resume for every job and pray that you get a job. No, it doesn't work in this era. So, we provide that within the same platform. Your interview preparation that's there, assuming you get to the point where you want to prepare for your certification, we have the certification prep simulation that would provide you questions similar to what you would see in your PMP or CAPM for you to prepare to get certified. So, and the last piece of the platform is the project blueprint, where you can generate projects for like projects specific to project management essentially, and be able to work on them and sort of get you prepared. So that career readiness encompasses all these items I just spoke about. And what Agile Learnings help you do is, like I said, the PM readiness, the personalized roadmap helps you build confidence, right? Because you have the foundation you need from the lessons you take. Um, you revamp your resume based on your experience, so you have a solid resume. You build your interview skills because we have the interview option there where you can practice some interview questions using the STAR approach, STAR approach, to get you ready for your interviews. And yeah, you go in prepared and ace it for your interview. Now, my personal journey, just to close off, I started my career after school. I started my career, well, it's been ups and downs, but let's say professionally as an IT analyst, and then moved into SharePoint engineering for some time. And just around the time we were migrating our SharePoint infrastructure, right? We were moving from one version to the other, so we needed a project. And so a project was started. They had a project manager. Um, the technical lead then had to step in as the scrum master because we were even new to agile. So like, okay, and I was part of the team members, but I got really interested in what was happening because I so much wanted to become a project manager. So this is where I started. Like, anytime when the tech lead is out of office, I'll step in as the scrum master, right? I'll step in and facilitate the meetings, the scrum ceremonies, or when he's busy, I'll just step in. And I took the initiative. That's very important. You need to take initiative. Volunteered where necessary, took ownership when the opportunity arose. And what happened was that at some point they realized, well, Emmanuel is doing a good job, right? Even the tech lead was like, well, I think Emmanuel is even doing better than me. So I think he should become the scrum master for the team. And also we would have him as one of our project lead for the projects we are working on. So, I was managing the team as the scrum master, also became the project track lead for one of the biggest tracks. Well, actually, for two tracks, for one other technical track and the management of change track, which is very important. Management of change, you hear about that a lot once you start working on projects. I managed that track as well for that team. And throughout the journey, I've invested heavily in continuous learning, right? I became a scrum master, I learned on the job, and I took the certification. right? And then eventually built my way up to become a project manager. I was very intentional, so I took on more responsibilities as I went through the journey. I made sure that I'm building delivery and stakeholder leadership skills in all of these and all these other skills I made mention of. So today, where I am today, technology projects manager. I'm a career coach as well. I'll share my contact details very soon for some of you who may want to reach out to have some one-on-ones with me. Founded Agile Linux, like I mentioned, and I'm helping people like you be able to build their career goal and be able to land their next job. So after this presentation, I'll be sending out the link to our platform. Um, and you know, for being here, you would have access to like you'll be part of our early bets for the platform, so you'd have access to be able to use it for free for a month, which is great. But even beyond that, it's fairly cheap in my opinion. I think it's $25 a month. So I'll share that, and then you can sign up. You can take the free assessment and see where you are at and start learning. And yeah, as you do that, please make sure you are taking initiatives. Make sure you are working on your resume to get you ready for project management. You need to start with clarity. You need to know where you are going to, and you need to be able to work towards that. Don't just guesswork. Don't just work without a plan. Right? Let this journey of becoming a project manager be a project management for yourself. So that should be all for today. Thanks a lot. And I have my LinkedIn, so you can find me on LinkedIn if you search my name, Emmanuel Ahiafo. And you can also, and I think it would be better to put this in the chat. If you want to book me for one-on-one coaching or have a discovery call meaning is just about 15 minutes with you. If you don't really know where you are going and you need some direction, we can have a quick discussion, discovery call, so I can understand how best I can help you. So you can find my profile on TopMate. Um, on TopMate, I have just a second. I will stop sharing. And please, if you have a question, please answer. Yeah, sorry, please ask. Let's see. Stopmate.io / my name underscore my last name. I think that is it. So this is my profile on TopMate, and you can see everything about me. I'm part of the top 1%, which is interesting. I have 41 bookings and 5%. Sorry, 5%, 5-star rating. So yeah, you can just go there, read some of the feedback from from folks that I have coached or have some interactions with in the past and how I was able to help them. You can read all the reviews, all the testimonials are here, and feel free to book some time with me, and we can have a chat. Okay. All right. That should be it for today. Let me see in the chat if we have some questions. How long does it take someone who is diverting from a different field to build themselves and become a project manager? I won't say there is a fixed duration. It all depends on how fast you are able to move and how quickly you are able to learn, right? Um, but that being said, you can give yourself, let's say, a year, right? I can't sit here and say that within 6 weeks, if you are very green to project management, within 6 weeks you can land a project manager role. No, that's false. If someone tells you that, they are lying at your face. Project management in itself, like project manager, like that role, like if you want to apply for that position, it is not an entry level role, right? So you need to start from somewhere, and it takes time. It takes time. Myself, I started it from the Scrum Master route. People may start from project coordinator route. People may start from project administrator route. People may start from project lead route, right? So it's not something that you can achieve within a few weeks. But just give yourself time. Start with the fundamental. Make sure you understand what project management is, and with the experience, start working on some personal projects that you can show and build your confidence as well. Because once you really step into the door, you realize that the position itself entails a lot, and you really need to be prepared and matured enough to handle some of situations that you may come across. I hope that answered your question, Dorcas. And Christopher, how do you figure out which sector in project management will best suit you? So, how to figure that out? I think it depends on your background. So, let's say you went to school to study IT. In my case, I studied computer science. That's where I thought I would strive, right? I love technology. I love working with technology. So that's where my passion is, right? Let's say you're a nurse. You love the healthcare industry. You love helping people. You love working on human and all that, you know. So that should help you. That can inform you. Okay, I love health. I can become a project management within the health sector. Engineering. You went to school because initially we were passionate about building. We went to study civil engineering. So eventually construction project management would make sense, right? You want to learn other areas of engineering, let's say mechanical, you know. Then it's okay, yeah, I can start off as a project engineer and then transition. So it all depends on your passion in a nutshell. Yeah. Okay. Are there any more questions? And please feel free to unmute if you have a question and you don't want to type, you want to speak, feel free and unmute. But if not, that should be it. And please feel free to reach
Emmanuel,
out. You can connect with me. Yep.
hi. Thank you for sharing your. Mine is not a question. Hopefully you can hear me because I just noticed
Yep.
my internet. Okay, so thank you for sharing your experience with us. Mine's not a question. It's just a comment of appreciation because I'm currently trying to take my PMP now, and
Mm-hmm.
it's quite exciting and in a very interesting way, such that
Mm-hmm.
it, I'm currently trying to go through the pen book. I've been doing it
Yep.
for about a little over a week now, and
Mm-hmm.
they seem like very familiar things to read based on what you said, experience, and then
Mm-hmm.
because I've been out of school for about a decade now, so I've
Mm-hmm.
been working in areas that make these things feel familiar, but
Good.
at the same time, it feels like you still have to read it in
Mm.
detail and understand the concepts in which project managers speak, and so
Right.
it's a pretty interesting experience, and yeah, hopefully by I'm glad you at least gave a timeline for your experience, and
Mm.
it's also similar to what I gave myself, and
Good.
I really appreciate you sharing. So thank you.
Good. Absolutely. And please feel free to reach out. I developed the blueprint for acing the PMP. I've had folks use it and they were able to nail the exam. The exams is tough, no doubt. And PM board can be overwhelming. You really need to know the key things to hammer on. You don't have to go memorizing all the 49 processes and all that, right? Like you need to be strategic. I'll tell you, I opened the PM book just once. Just once. I didn't go past 5 pages. I closed that book. So let's have a chat. You can book a discovery call. Let's have a chat and let's see how best I can help you. Okay. And I'll put that link in the chat so it makes it easier for you. Yeah, that's it. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, if not, I'll hand it back to you, Dorcas. Thanks very much for hosting me.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Emmanuel, here for that insightful session. I really learned a lot, and I hope everyone also learned a lot from it. So, we've come to an end of our session, and if you have any further inquiries or you have any questions that you want to ask, you can send it to our email here at info@eimconsultancyld.org, and we would answer it for you. And I think Mr. Emmanuel also dropped his email and website, so you can also contact him if you need any help or any if you have any questions. Thank you so much for joining us, and I hope to see you all in our next session next month. And have a lovely evening. Thank you so
Thanks.
much.
Right.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye.